My boss stole the promotion I'd earned and gave it to his nephew, who'd been working here for 3 months, but what he didn't know was that I discovered his embezzlement scheme and I was about to expose everything at the company Christmas party. Look on his face when I handed the CEO evidence of 2 years of stolen funds. Right in front of 200 employees was worth every sleepless night. I'd spent building my Casime name as Jessica Martinez, and for 5 years I'd been the perfect employee at Morrison Financial Services, loyal, hardworking, and apparently completely dispensable. We continue. I want to thank you for being here. If you believe that hard work should be rewarded, not stolen, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps US reach more people who need to hear this now. Let's see how corporate betrayal became corporate justice. I started at Morrison Financial as a junior analyst, fresh out of college with a business degree and dreams of climbing the corporate ladder. The company seemed perfect, mid-sized, reputable, with a clear promotion track. My boss, Richard Morrison, was the founder's son, charming, confident, and seemingly committed to developing young talent. I see real potential in you, Jessica, he told me during my first week. Work hard and you'll go far here. For the first 2 years, I believed him. I worked 60-hour weeks, took on extra projects, and consistently exceeded my targets. Richard praised my dedication and hinted at future opportunities. You're exactly the kind of employee we want to invest in, he'd say during performance reviews. Keep this up and you'll be running your own department soon. I was naive enough to think merit mattered more than connections. First red flag came when Richard hired his nephew Tyler straight out of college with no relevant experience. Tyler was given a senior analyst position despite having 0 qualifications, family connections. Richard explained when I questioned the hire, Tyler brings fresh perspective and he's eager to learn. What Tyler actually brought was an attitude and an expectation that rules didn't apply to him. Tyler would arrive late, leave early, and spend most of his time on personal calls or social media when clients complained about his work. Richard would reassign their accounts to me without giving me credit. Jessica will handle the Morrison account, Richard would say in meetings. She has more experience with complex portfolios, but Tyler's name remained on the paperwork. And he received the commission. I started documenting everything. Tyler's absences, his mistakes, the work I was doing under his name. I told myself I was being paranoid, but something felt wrong about the whole arrangement. The promotion opportunity came up in March, senior portfolio manager, a position I've been working toward for 3 years. The job description matched my experience perfectly, and Richard encouraged me to apply. This position has your name written all over it, he told me privately. I've been grooming you for this role. You're the obvious choice. I spent weeks preparing my presentation, perfecting my portfolio. Interview process was rigorous. Presentations to the board, client testimonials, performance metrics. I excelled in every category and felt confident about my chances. Then came the announcement. Tyler Morrison had been promoted to senior portfolio manager, effective immediately. No interview, no presentation, just a family name and Richard's recommendation. I was devastated, but Richard called me into his office with what seemed like genuine sympathy. I fought for you, Jessica, but the board wanted someone with fresh ideas. Tyler's youth brings energy to the role. Fresh ideas, I repeated numbly. Richard, he's been here 3 months. He doesn't know our systems, our clients, our procedures. Richard nodded sympathetically. I know it's frustrating, but this is how business works sometimes. What about all the work I've been doing? I asked. The Morrison account, the Henderson portfolio, the Williams Trust. Richard's expression shifted slightly. That was team effort. Jessica, you can't take sole credit. That's when I realized what was happening. My work was being systematically attributed to Tyler while I remained invisible. My contributions were being erased from company records. I went home that night and cried for the first time in years. Not just from disappointment, but from the crushing realization that merit meant nothing in a system designed to benefit insiders. But anger is a powerful motivator, and by morning my tears had turned into determination. If Richard wanted to play games, I'd learned the rules and played a weenie. Started paying closer attention to office dynamics, to the way Richard operated, to the patterns I'd been too trusting to notice before, and what I discovered was far worse than nepotism. Richard had been systematically stealing from client accounts for at least 2 years, small amounts that wouldn't trigger automatic audits, but significant when accumulated over time. I First noticed it in the Morrison account, the one Tyler was supposedly managing, but I was actually handling the numbers, didn't add up investment returns, were being skimmed at first. I thought it was a mistake, but when I dug deeper, I found the same pattern across multiple accounts, money being diverted into accounts I couldn't trace. Richard was embezzling from his own clients, using his position as department head to cover his tracks. And now I understood why. Tyler had been promoted. He was the perfect fall guy if the scheme was ever discovered. Tyler's name was on the paperwork. Tyler had access to the accounts. Tyler would take the blame while Richard played the shocked and betrayed. Uncle, I realized then that Richard hadn't just stolen my promotion. He potentially set me up too. If I'd gotten the position, I would have inherited those corrupted accounts and the liability that came with that. Night, I made a decision. I was going to expose Richard Morrison, but I needed to be smart about it. I needed irrefutable evidence, and I needed to protect myself. LEGLLY, I started documenting everything: account discrepancies, unauthorized transfers, suspicious transactions. I worked late every night copying files and building a comprehensive Cassidy Company's Christmas party was scheduled for December 15th, a lavish affair where Richard would undoubtedly bask in praise for the department's success. It seemed like the perfect venue for justice. I spent months gathering evidence: bank records, transaction histories, client statements, everything that proved Richard's systematic theft from the people who trusted him. Most hardest part was pretending everything was normal. Smiling when Richard praised Tyler's excellent work, nodding when he discussed department growth built on stolen money. Jessica's been instrumental in Tyler's success. Richard would tell clients she's been mentoring him, helping him understand our complex systems. I was being credited as an accomplice to my own replacement. Tyler seemed oblivious to the scheme. He genuinely believed he'd earned his position through merit. I'm just naturally good with numbers, he'd brag to anyone who'd listen. I almost felt sorry for him until I overheard him talking to his girlfriend on the phone. Uncle Richard takes care of family, he said. I'll probably be running this place in a few years. The entitlement in his voice reminded me that Tyler wasn't just benefiting from nepotism, he was actively participating in my erasure from company history. I started reaching out to former clients who'd worked with me directly. They were confused about why Tyler was now handling their accounts. I thought you were my portfolio manager, several said. There's been a reorganization. I'd explained professionally. Tyler is taking over the senior accounts, but privately, I was documenting their confusion, their preference for my continued involvement. Mrs. Henderson, an elderly client I worked with for 3 years, was particularly upset. You know my financial situation, Jessica. You understand my needs. Why am I being passed off to some boy? I couldn't tell her the truth, not yet, but I promised myself that justice would come. And when it did, Mrs. Henderson would understand why her trust had been betrayed. Evidence I was gathering painted a clear picture. Richard had stolen approximately $400,000 over 2 years from 12 different client accounts, using his administrative access to cover the theft. Been careful to target elderly clients, or those who rarely checked their statements, people who trusted the Morrison name and wouldn't question small discrepancies. But Richard had made one crucial mistake. He'd been depositing the stolen money into an account under Tyler's social security number, probably planning to frame his nephew if the scheme was discovered. I had bank records showing the deposits, transaction histories proving the theft, and email evidence of Richard's instructions to adjust client portfolios to cover shortfalls. She company Christmas party was held at the Grand Ballroom downtown. 200 employees plus spouses and board members. Richard had spared no expense, celebrating what he called our most successful year ever. I arrived early, wearing my best dress and carrying a leather portfolio that contained 2 years of evidence against Richard Morrison. I'd also invited a special guest detective, Sarah Williams, from the Financial Crimes Unit. Had agreed to attend as my +1 after reviewing a summary of my evidence. If what you're showing me is accurate, she'd said, this is a serious felony. Richard was in his element that night, working the room, accepting congratulations for the department's performance. He'd even prepared a speech about family values and mentoring the next generation. Tyler stood beside him, basking in reflected glory, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He looked like he belonged there, like success was his birthright. "Jessica," Richard called out when he saw me. "Come meet the board members." I was just telling them about your excellent support of Tyler's transition into leadership. Support? I smiled tightly. I've certainly learned a lot about leadership this year. The board members nodded politely, having no idea they were about to. Witness corporate history dinner was served, and Richard stood to give his speech. "This has been an extraordinary year for Morrison Financial," he began. "We've seen tremendous growth, innovative strategies, and exceptional teamwork." He gestured toward Tyler. "I'm particularly proud of our newest senior portfolio manager, my nephew Tyler, who's brought fresh energy and outstanding results to our client services." The applause was polite, but I noticed several employees exchanging glances they knew. Who'd actually been doing Tyler's work? They'd seen me staying late fixing his mistakes. Of course, Tyler's success wouldn't be possible without our dedicated support staff. Richard continued. "Employees like Jessica Martinez, who've helped him navigate our complex systems support staff." I felt my jaw clench, but I maintained my smile. "Detective Williams squeezed my hand under the table. Almost time," she whispered. Richard concluded his speech with a toast to family, to loyalty, and to the continued success of Morrison Financial. Everyone raised their glasses, but I remained seated. "Actually, Richard," I said, standing slowly, "I have something to add to your speech about family and loyalty." The room fell quiet, all eyes turning toward me. Richard's smile faltered slightly. "Jessica, this isn't really the time for." But I was already walking toward the front of the room, my portfolio in hand. "I think it's the perfect time," I said, addressing the room, "to talk about what family and loyalty really mean at Morrison Financial." I opened my portfolio and pulled out the first document. For example, this bank statement shows how family loyalty allowed Tyler Morrison to receive $400,000 in deposits over the past 2 years. Gasps rippled through the room. Richard's face went white. "Jessica, what are you doing? This is highly inappropriate." But I continued. "Inappropriate? Like stealing from elderly clients who trusted you with their life savings." I held up another document, Mrs. Henderson's account statement, showing $15,000 in unauthorized withdrawals, attributed to market adjustments that never actually occurred. Tyler looked confused. "Uncle Richard, what is she talking about?" But Richard was already moving toward me. "Jessica, stop this immediately. You're making serious accusations without proof." "Without proof?" I smiled and gestured toward Detective Williams, who stood and showed her badge. "Detective Williams, Financial Crimes Unit. I think we have plenty of proof." Room erupted in shocked whispers. Board members stood from their tables. Clients looked horrified. Tyler's face cycled through confusion, anger, and dawning realization. "Richard Morrison," Detective Williams said formally, "you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and theft from client accounts." She began reading his rights as security moved to block the exits. "Richard tried one last manipulation. This is a misunderstanding. Jessica is clearly disturbed about not getting promoted. She's fabricated evidence to get revenge, but I had anticipated this. Actually, Richard, I have recordings of you discussing the scheme." I played an audio clip on my phone, his voice clear and unmistakable. "Tyler's account is perfect," his recorded voice said. "If anyone discovers the missing money, it'll look like the kid got greedy. Nobody will suspect the uncle who gave him everything." Tyler's face crumpled. "You were going to frame me," he whispered. "Your own nephew." Richard couldn't meet his eyes as the handcuffs clicked. Indeplacide, CEO James Morrison, Richard's father, stood slowly, his face ashen. "Jessica, how long have you known about this?" His voice was barely controlled. "I discovered the discrepancies 3 months ago." I replied, "I've been building a case ever since to ensure we had enough evidence for prosecution." "Why didn't you come to me immediately?" he asked, and I looked directly at him. "Because Richard told me family always comes first at Morrison Financial. I wasn't sure who I could trust." The aftermath was swift and decisive. Richard was led away in handcuffs while 200 employees and clients watched the man they trusted destroy his own legacy. Tyler was questioned, but ultimately cleared of wrongdoing. The evidence showed he'd been an unwitting pawn in his uncle's scheme, though his promotion was immediately revoked. Board called an emergency meeting that night. I was asked to present my findings in detail to help them understand the full scope of Richard's betrayal. Ms. Martinez, the CEO, said after my presentation, "Your diligence and integrity have saved this company from a scandal that could have destroyed us. How can we make this right?" I was offered Richard's position as department head with a significant salary, increase in full authority to restructure the team, but more importantly, I'd earned something money couldn't buy: respect. Clients whose money Richard had stolen were made whole through company insurance and personal guarantees from the Morrison family. Mrs. Henderson personally thanked me for protecting her savings. "I knew something was wrong," she told me, "but I didn't know who to trust. You saved my retirement, Jessica." Her words meant more than any promotion ever could. Tyler left the company quietly, his dreams of easy success shattered by the reality of his uncle's crimes. He sent me a brief apology. "I'm sorry I took credit for your work. I didn't know." Richard was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay full restitution. The judge called his crimes a betrayal of the most fundamental trust between financial advisor and client. The company implemented new oversight procedures and whistleblower protections my experience had exposed systemic weaknesses that needed addressing. I rebuilt the department from the ground up, hiring based on merit, not connections, creating transparent promotion criteria, and establishing client advocacy protocols. Irony wasn't lost on me that Richard's attempt to steal my career had ultimately given me more power and influence than I'd ever imagined possible. 6 months later, Morrison Financial was stronger than ever. Client trust had been restored through transparency and accountability, the values Richard had only pretended to embrace. I kept the audio recording of Richard's confession, not out of spite, but as a reminder that sometimes the people who preach about family and loyalty understand neither. Tyler eventually found work at a smaller firm, where he had to earn his position through actual performance. I heard he was doing well, learning that success requires more than a famous Namath Christmas party. The following year was different. Smaller, more intimate, focused on celebrating actual achievements rather than stolen. Creditai gave a speech that night about integrity and accountability, about the difference between earning respect and demanding it, about why merit matters more than connections. This company was built on trust. I told the assembled employees. Trust between colleagues, trust between advisor and client, trust that hard work will be rewarded. When that trust is broken, I continued, it's our responsibility to rebuild it stronger than before, to ensure that what happened with Richard Morrison never happens again. The applause was genuine this time, not polite obligation, but real appreciation for leadership that had been tested and proven under fire. Mrs. Henderson attended as my guest that year at 78 years old. She wanted to see the woman who'd protected her life savings receive the recognition she deserved. "You could have stayed quiet," she told me during dinner. "Taken the easy path, but you chose to do what was right, even when it was dangerous." Dangerous it had been. Richard had powerful connections, people who might have chosen to protect him rather than pursue justice, but truth has a way of prevailing when backed by evidence. I learned that workplace betrayal often reveals character, not just of the betrayer, but of everyone around them. Some people will always choose comfort over courage, but others will stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it puts their own position at risk. Those are the people worth working with. The promotion I'd originally wanted seemed small compared to what I'd actually achieved. I'd exposed corruption, protected innocent people, and rebuilt an entire department. Richard had tried to steal my career, but instead he'd given me something more valuable, the knowledge that I could face any challenge and emerge stronger. The company culture changed after Richard's arrest. People felt safer reporting problems, knowing that merit would be rewarded and misconduct would be punished. I established mentorship programs for young employees, ensuring that real guidance replaced the fake promises Richard had used to manipulate people. Like meth, financial industry took notice of what had happened at Morrison Financial. I was invited to speak at conferences about corporate ethics and whistleblower protection. Corruption thrives in silence, I would tell audiences, but it dies in the light of transparency and accountability. We all have a responsibility to shine that light. Richard's downfall became a cautionary tale in business schools about the dangers of nepotism and the importance of internal controls, but for me it was simpler than that. It was about refusing to accept that hard work doesn't matter, that connections trump competence, that family loyalty Excuses criminal behavior, Tyler and I never became friends, but we developed a professional respect. He learned hard lessons about earning success, and I learned about the power of patient justice. The audio recording that had sealed Richard's fate was played in court during his sentencing, hearing his own words, condemning him more effectively than any prosecutor could. Family always comes first, he'd said in that recording. But sometimes you have to sacrifice one family member to protect the rest. The judge called it chilling in its callousness. I kept my job not because of family connections or political maneuvering, but because I'd proven myself under the most difficult circumstances. Possible clients who'd been stolen from became some of my strongest advocates. They'd seen me fight for them when no one else would, and they never forgot that. Loyalty, Mrs. Henderson often brought her friends to meet me. This is Jessica, she'd say proudly. She's the one who caught the thief and saved our money. Word of mouth became my best advertisement. The company's reputation not only recovered but improved. We became known as a firm that policed itself, that put client interests above family politics. I learned that sometimes the best promotion is the one you create for yourself by doing what's right even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. Richard's empty office became a conference room where we held ethics training sessions, a daily reminder that no one is above accountability. Christmas party, where I'd exposed Richard, became legendary in company history. New employees would hear the story and understand that integrity wasn't just encouraged, it was required. I never regretted my decision to speak up, even though it had been terrifying, even though I'd risked everything. The alternative, staying silent, was unthinkable. Promotion Richard had stolen from me turned out to be nothing compared to what I gained: the respect of my colleagues, the trust of clients, and the knowledge that I'd done the right thing. If this story of workplace justice and standing up to corruption gave you chills, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Richard's own recorded voice played back his confession in front of 200 people. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below for more stories of corporate accountability and fighting for what's right. Subscribe and tap the notification bell